Hey Wargamers, today we're going to continue our 2019 update to the Tau Codex review by looking at tactical drones. Now, tactical drones are either gun drones, shield drones, or marker drones. They all fall under this category of tactical drone, and they can either be taken as independent units or as an attachment to an existing battlesuit unit or infantry unit. So they are extremely fluffy, but also essential to the functioning of the Tau army on the tabletop. That's what we're going to be talking about today, how they've changed, how you want to use them, and we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about how Saviour protocols actually work, because that's a question that comes up time and time again. Before we do that, I want to say thanks for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit subscribe. That way you won't miss any of my upcoming videos in this series. Alright, so tactical drones are actually fairly cheap. You get each drone for 10 points regardless of its type, and they all share a unified base profile. They all have the same stats. It's just what they're equipped with that makes them different. So, for a gun drone, shield drone, or marker drone, you have movement 8, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, strength 3, toughness 4, 1 wound, 1 attack, leadership 6, and a 4-up save. The minimum unit size is 4, but you can take up to 12. All drones have the For the Greater Good and Manta Strike abilities, meaning that they can fire Overwatch for their friends, and they can deep strike anywhere on the board after the second turn outside of 9 inches. So very maneuverable and very flexible in their deployment right off the bat. Now, what makes each of those different drones distinct is their equipment and special rules. Shield drones obviously have a shield generator that gives them a 4-up invulnerable save and a 5-up feel no pain. That's going to be really important later. Marker drones have a marker light and a stable platform special rule, meaning that they can move and shoot without penalty. And then gun drones have 2 pulse carbines, giving them 4 shots at 18 inches, but they have threat identification protocol special rule, which means that they have to fire at the closest target. So no picking and choosing your target with gun drones. They have to shoot at the closest target, and that's it. But really the thing that makes drones of any sort really valuable to an army is the Saviour Protocol special rule. Saviour Protocol states if a Sept infantry or Sept battlesuit unit within 3 inches of a friendly Sept drone unit is wounded by an enemy attack, roll a d6. On a 2-up, you can allocate that wound to the drone unit instead of the target. If you do, the drone unit suffers a mortal wound instead of the normal damage. So there are a couple things there that are really important to know. One is that Saviour Protocols is Sept specific, meaning that you cannot intercept a wound for a Vior Law unit using a Tau Sept unit of drones. So they have to be the same Sept in order for Saviour Protocols to work. If they're from a different Sept, the drones just don't care or don't recognize the friend as being really that important, so they don't step in to take the wound. The second thing is that you have to roll a 2-up, and that this is done directly following the allocation of the hit to the target. So in that way, you shuck the wound over to the drone, and when that happens, it is only 1 mortal wound. You could be doing, 20 damage in a shot. I don't think there's a weapon that did that, but if there was, it could all be consolidated down to a single mortal wound in the process of using Saviour Protocols. And this is really one of the biggest strengths of Saviour Protocols, is it consolidates and condenses damage into units that they don't really want to be shooting at, right? People don't really want to be shooting at drones. They want to be shooting at your high priority targets. And so by using Saviour Protocols, not only are you allocating that damage away from that unit, but you're also mitigating huge amounts of potential damage that they would be doing, right? If they're doing 6 damage, like with a fusion gun or something, that 6 damage is now just 1 damage. And for a drone, it's all the same because they only have 1 wound. But that's important because it totally negates those extra 5 wounds. They're just getting nothing for that. They might as well have rolled a 1 on that fusion gun result instead of rolling a 6. So that is very powerful and should not be underestimated or understated when viewing the Tau Codex. So like I said, the way that Saviour Protocols actually works is a perennial question. People get confused about it a lot. So I want to take a step back using some existing footage that I have that really illustrates how you use Saviour Protocols, walk you through it step by step in a real example using real dice and real models. So let's take a look at how you actually use Saviour Protocols using different levels of complexity, starting off with a gun drone and moving on to shield drones because of their special rules. They work a little bit differently. So starting with gun drones, let's take a look.
All right, let's start with something simple. So I have a Riptide here, a couple gun drones, and let's say that this Riptide gets shot at by a Hive Tyrant with Devourers, for example. So what's going to happen is the Hive Tyrant is going to shoot 1 Devourer here. Devourer is a 6-shot weapon. He's looking for 3s. So I got a couple 6s, a couple 3s, a 4, and a 2. So the 2 is going to miss. And then it's a strength 6 weapon. So he's going to need 5s to wound a Riptide. and he gets 3 wounds. So now there are 3 wounds on the Riptide, and this is where Saviour Protocols jumps in. Instead of allocating them to the Riptide, you're going to say, I want to allocate them to the drones. And because of that, you're going to roll these 3 dice. Rather, you're going to roll your own dice here. And you're looking for 2s in order to shuck those 3 wounds onto this unit of drones. All right, so we got all 3 here. Now, that's good. That means that we are able to pass these wounds off to the drone unit, but there's only 2 drones here. So one of them is still going to make it through, but these 2 automatically go to this unit. Because gun drones don't have any type of feel no pain save, it kills each of them instantly with a mortal wound. And now there's just 1 wound left going to the Riptide. So there's no AP on this weapon, so he just gets his 2-up save, and he gets it with a 3. So the Riptide's fine. That's the basic use of Saviour Protocols. All right, let's say that Riptide gets charged by the Hive Tyrant then, and the Hive Tyrant has Monstrous Siling Talons. Monstrous Siling Talons are -3 AP, 3 damage. They can do a lot of hurt to a Riptide, and the Hive Tyrant has 4 attacks. So let's say the Hive Tyrant does that. We're looking for 2s to hit. All right, he makes 3 of them. So then he's strength 6 and he needs 5 to wound. He gets 1. All right, so now I have this 1 damage that has wounded, or this 1 hit that's wounded the Riptide. At this point, again, I can make my Saviour Protocols roll to allocate to this nearby drone unit. I get a 4, so it successfully moves on to the drone unit. And even though it's 3 damage, it just gets transferred down to a single mortal wound. So we only have to kill 1 of these drones. All right, and in that scenario, we're done. The Hive Tyrant has resolved his attacks, and the damage that would be done to the Riptide has now been allocated to the drones, and the drones have taken their casualty as a result of that. All right, let's make it a little bit more complicated by introducing shield drones. Shield drones have a 5-up feel no pain style rule where anytime they take damage, they roll a die, and if it's a 5 or greater, that wound is ignored. So here, again, let's say the Riptide has been attacked by a Hive Tyrant in close combat. Hive Tyrant has 4 attacks. We're looking for 2s. He makes them all. All right, and then now the Hive Tyrant is looking for 5s again. And he gets 2. All right, so these 2 attacks normally would be -3 AP against the Riptide's armor save, or he would be taking his invulnerable save, depending on which one is greater at the time. And so these 2 attacks could just go on the Riptide, but we're going to try to shuck them over to the shield drones using Saviour Protocols. Okay, so here we're looking for 2s to shuck them over to the drones. We make them. So the damage that would be going to the Riptide is now going to the drones. And normally this would kill both of these drones, but because we have a 5-up feel no pain, we can roll these and look for 5s. Neither of these are a 5 or a 6, so that means that indeed both of these drones are going to have to eat it. And so they're removed as casualties.
All right, yeah, and that's how you use Saviour Protocols. It's fairly simple. You allocate the wound to the drone, you roll a 2-up to do that, and once you do that, all the damage gets consolidated down to a single mortal wound, and then you resolve that mortal wound against the target drone. That's it. Now, you may be asking, what about psychic powers? In some of the earlier versions of this video, I've talked about how psychic powers interact with Saviour Protocols, and we're in luck. Games Workshop has finally clarified this, although it may not be in the way that you were hoping. In the latest FAQ, Games Workshop put this out. The question is, for purposes of Saviour Protocols, what exactly constitutes an attack? And the answer is, in this context, it is an attack made with a ranged or melee weapon. Now, this is really answering the crux of the argument about how psychic powers interacted with Saviour Protocols. The big question was, are psychic powers attacks? And I, including many other people, said yes, they were. Now, Games Workshop here is saying explicitly no. They are not. It has to be melee or range attack, and therefore, Saviour Protocols only works in shooting or melee phases. It does not work in the psychic phase, which is important because that dictates how you actually have to deploy your drones. If we are looking to shield units against psychic powers, we have to actually have those drones be the closest unit. You can't have them hang out in back, avoid direct fire or anything like that. They have to be up in front, visible, and the closest unit to the Psyker in order to intercept things like Smite. So if you are looking to use Saviour protocols against Smite, you can't do it, but you can force your opponent to shoot at those drones using Smite by having them be the closer target. That's it. It's all about deployment, and as we all know, deployment and movement are really the biggest parts of this game in some contexts, and this is one of them. So, right, that's how Saviour protocols interacts with Smite. And that's something huge that's different from previous videos that we've done on this topic. So let's move on and talk about how you might actually want to use drones in your army. In general, I have the overarching principle that whatever drone unit I put on the tabletop, I want it to be of one type. I don't want to be mixing shield drones and marker drones and gun drones in one unit because they all have very different roles and they will want to be in different places on the board at the same time. Gun drones will want to be close to units that you're shooting at because of their threat identification protocols special role. Shield drones will want to be next to high priority targets that you want to protect, and marker drones will want to be far away and kind of like out of the way, really. So that has these three different types of drones wanting to be in different places at different times and different turns. So that means that you don't want them all mixed together. You want to pick one type of drone and dedicate that unit to being that type of drone in most cases. So starting with shield drones are really the cream of the crop as far as tactical drones go. The reason for that is because shield drones do something that no other unit in the game can do, or in the codex can do, and that is intercept wounds and consolidate them using a feel no pain rule. Crisis bodyguards, stealth suits for Shadow Sun both can intercept wounds, but not in the same way, and they can't have the same level of durability associated with that. And they are also notably much more expensive. So shield drones are unique and valuable in your army, and so they really should be a priority when looking at tactical drone units. That means that essentially they're the most viable way of increasing the durability of battlesuit units in your army, and that is really important. That's something that no other unit can really do. And all the other drones have things that can do what they do in other cases. So for like gun drones, for example, you could take fire warriors. Gun drones are actually more point efficient than fire warriors within certain contexts, but they suffer from the fact that they have to shoot at the nearest target. They only have 18-inch range. And of course, they are soaking up one of our 3 units of tactical drones. Because of that, gun drones are not going to be something that you really want to prioritize in one of your 3 freestanding tactical drone units. You could sprinkle gun drones in as attachments to other units, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But overall, if you're talking about your freestanding tactical drone units, you do not want them to be gun drones. You want them to be shield drones. Same thing with marker lights. You can get marker lights from lots of other sources, better sources, and you don't want to be soaking up a tactical drone unit with marker drones. As I mentioned, you can also take drones as attachments to existing units. This is done by the drone support special rule and allows you to take drones as attachments or upgrades to certain units, namely infantry, characters, and battle suits, and add those drones to the unit, but once they are deployed, they act as independent units. Now, this has some strengths and weaknesses. It allows you to consolidate your drops, so you can have fewer drops, meaning you have a better chance of being deployed first, but it also allows you to leverage some existing mechanisms to greater effect. For example, if you have a crisis suit unit with a bunch of drones and they drop in using a homing beacon, those drones don't have to have their own homing beacon. They can piggyback on the crisis suit unit, and you get 2 units down on one homing beacon, and that's a great use of one homing beacon. That's pretty useful. It used to be that I would rely on crisis suits to do this in order to bring drones deep into the battlefield before drones had the ability to manta strike on their own. So this is a really valuable trait of drones. On the flip side, it also restricts your deployment options a little bit. You can't just take these drones that are attached to this other unit and put them wherever you want. They have to be next to that unit. So in that same crisis suit example, if you wanted to have those drones offer support to a different unit, you couldn't do that. You couldn't have them just hang out next to a commander or hang out next to a Riptide at the start of the game. No, they have to be in Manta Strike to go down with those crisis suits. So there's a little bit of give and take, but overall it gives you a nice amount of flexibility and consolidation of your drops. So I think that's a pretty good thing. Now, I won't be talking about all the types of specialized drones in this video, things like pulse accelerator drones. Those are for a different day. But as far as tactical drones go, when do you want to take them and in how large quantities is going to be largely dependent on the type of unit that we're talking about. So if we're talking about attaching drones to a unit, we don't want to be taking 1 or 2 drones as an attachment to a character or a Riptide, anything that can only take a couple drones. We don't want to do that. The reason for that is because it's very easy kill points. Those drones will offer very little to you, and they will ultimately cost you in the long run. Instead, you want to have a smaller number of units that are larger and more robust. That's how we want to do it. So if we're looking at battlesuits, we don't want to be taking drones as an upgrade on Riptides, but we do want to be taking them as an upgrade on things like broadsides and crisis suits. Those are places where we can actually accumulate drones beyond just 1 or 2, and that's how you want to use attached drones. In cases like commanders and Riptides and independent characters, we want to be using our clouds of freestanding tactical drones that we discussed earlier. Those independent units of tactical drones are what we use to support those units. So when we're talking about Riptides, that's why we need to bring units of shield drones on their own and not try to, use the shielded missile drone on the Riptide, which, by the way, is not a good choice. So lots of reasons not to do that. Stick with taking the independent unit of shield drones and have that be your babysitter for your Riptide. So really, I'm looking for units of 4 to 6 drones. The reason why I don't necessarily want to take more than 6 drones is because of that low leadership. If you recall, they have leadership of 6, which means that they're pretty easy to make run. And as a result, when you are using drones to do Saviour protocols, you're actually increasing the likelihood that you're going to lose more drones. So we want to keep the sizes bigger than 2 and, somewhere around 4 and 6. Somewhere in there is where we really want drone units to be, with one exception. If you take an ethereal, and especially if that ethereal is a Sakia Sept ethereal, you can greatly bolster the resilience of your drones to morale. If you are bringing an ethereal, especially a Sakia ethereal, you can bring pretty large sizes of drones. Up to 10 drones in a unit will be fine and not have to really worry about morale in the same way that your freestanding drones would otherwise. So ethereals are the key to bringing large units of drones. Otherwise, take 4 to 6 drones in a unit. For army lists that are between 1,500 and 2,000 points, I generally want to have around 15 drones, somewhere around there. I want to have, enough drones that I can actually survive multiple rounds of shooting for my high priority targets. And that's really it. I'm not bringing drones to make my fire warriors live longer. I'm bringing drones to make my crisis suits, my broadsides, my Riptides last longer. And really, I need them to make it through 1 or 2 turns, just enough to take the edge off and allow my firepower to prevail in the long run. So if I can make my high priority units last to turn 3, by that point, I should have enough remaining firepower that I can finish off the opponent and win the game. If my drones fail and I lose units, high priority units early on, turns 1, turns 2, that's when I run into an issue. So somewhere around 15 drones, I think, is a good amount for that point range. Generally, more at 1,500, maybe I would be a little bit closer to like maybe 10 drones, and at 2,000, maybe I'd be closer to maybe 18 drones, but something like that. Somewhere in that range is about how many drones that you want to have. You don't need 30 drones. Very rarely do I see lists that have 30 drones in them really doing what they need to do. At that point, you're giving up firepower in order to increase your durability, which really is not necessary, right? There's not an infinite return on drones. You don't need an army full of drones, right? Like, we could think of an example where we have 90% of our points made up in drones, and that army would lose because it has no offensive capability. It's all durability. That's not going to win you games. You need to have that balance. And I think, around this range of drone count is where you get that nice balance in offensive and defensive capabilities. So overall, what is my recommendation for drones? Take a couple or 3 units of shield drones, depending on your army composition. If you are bringing broadsides or crisis suits, utilize those attachment drone units to bring a few more shield drones or something like that, because again, that avoids the rule of 3 issues by taking those attached drone units. Those don't count as one of your 3, so you can kind of get around the rules that way. Overall, drones are essential to army functioning. You should always bring at least some drones, especially if you're bringing battlesuit heavy army lists. If you're bringing infantry, it's not as important, but really these drones are going to save you a ton of pain on your high priority targets if you bring them. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you like about drones? What do you wish would be improved? Either way, let me know in the comments. And always, thanks for watching and happy wargaming. Hey everyone, this video is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there as well. Special thanks to Shifty, Nick Steele, Tao Oswell, Scott Heater, Jared Egler, Jake Johnson, Stephen Cohen, Scott J. Smith, Eric Jackson, Benjamin, Chris Kessler, RP, Julian Peck, Peter Benjamin Parker, Andy M. Young, and Giovanni DiMaggio.